Okay. Hello, everyone. I still can't figure out how to play music at the beginning of my broadcasts, so bear with me when I feel like it. Oh, anyway, sorry about that. Okay, so I have had a few weeks in the United States. I flew into Los Angeles, let's see, a few weeks ago. Lots of really fun stuff happened in Los Angeles. It's that kind of place. It's kind of, I would never really want to live there, but I kind of like visiting sometimes. So I was in Los Angeles. I did some stuff. I wasn't really, I've kind of been on vacation before the real world sort of catches up with me again. Oh, hey, S Valley, how are you? I'll share the link in case anyone wants to join me. Hold on just a moment here. Yeah, so here we are. So that should be the link to the Hangout. Um, so yeah, I was in LA, had a fun time. Hey, Julia, um, or Leah, um, feel free to come in. Um, uh, I keep getting distracted by the chat. So, right, Los Angeles, fun time. Saw some comedy, saw some improv, some stand up. Went to go see some art stuff. Saw Ai Weiwei. I went to this opening in Beverly Hills to see Ai Weiwei's exhibit. I don't really like him that much, but I like going to art openings because, it's kind of fun. And sometimes famous people come to them. So Val Kilmer was there and he was wearing like neon green sneakers. It was really funny. And he was like waiting to talk to Ai Weiwei. And I'm just like, oh, look, men fanboying over other men. What a surprise. Um, anyway, great to see I'm back. Thank you. And then from Los Angeles, I took an Amtrak to um Santa Fe. I was at a different friend's house for a while, but it was a weird scene, so I left. And now I'm in a spot that's like a lot closer to town, so I can walk into town and hang out if I want to. Um, and that's pretty cool. I like Santa Fe. It's a small place. It's really pretty. Um, there's a lot of different kinds of people here because well, it's the Southwest. We've got the sort of in the United States, a lot of traveling sort of, I don't want to call them hippies. We've got crust punks, that kind of scene. Definitely a fairly large homeless population. And in Los Angeles, the homeless situation is definitely out of control. Um, I don't know, I really sometimes would like to just give up everything and just work with the homeless sometimes. But I can't right now. I have other things on my plate. But it's just heartbreaking, really. Part of the reason for that is I believe it was Reagan. I believe it was funding for like mental institutions, and they all shut down. And so many of the population of homeless people in the United States are also very mentally unhealthy, so to speak. So it's really heartbreaking. Right. So I'm in Santa Fe now, and I thought I'd catch you up a little bit on my life, what's been happening, and the word queer, because the word queer has come up a lot since I got to Santa Fe. Um, I have two old friends here, and I mean, I'm kind of part of sort of an artist kind of scene. I don't know. I'm not really part of any scene, but the friends that I've seemed to make in life are into art or have friends who are into art. And so the word queer comes up a lot because, you know, white white artists who are straight you know, want to identify into the LGBTQ community. I think um, with the word queer, it gives straight people away sort of in there. And it's a virtue kind of signal, I think. I don't understand what happened to the word bisexual. It's very strange to think about language and how it changes. Um, so S Valley says laptop chose to do updates now. Great, good timing, laptop. Um, so I'll just start telling you some stories about my time here so far and my experience with the word queer and the kind of people who I've observed using it. It's appropriation of marginalization. Yeah, it is. And also, I don't know how long I'm going to be on. I am staying at a friend's house. I don't know when they're going to get back. I mean, I was having a really nice time walking around the plaza area, and I haven't been on for so long that I wanted to let everyone know that I'm not dead. I know it's late there. Sorry. I just spilt soda water all over myself. Perfect. Anyway, so one of the friends that I have here is a woman who is about 45 years old, and she's had kind of a really rough time. Without going into too much detail, was in has a brain injury, basically. Was in an accident and has a brain injury. That has nothing to do with her and her use of the word queer, but I don't know. It's just how I tell stories. I like to give people details. So, I mean, I have a lot of issues communicating with this friend as well. So, I didn't really call her out when she was using the word queer to describe herself and a woman who she's house sitting for. When in reality, these women are mostly heterosexual. Like, I don't think they've been in a real female relationship ever. Yeah. I'm going to say ever. So a real female relationship, I don't think either of these women has ever been in. But they call themselves queer. And I don't think a lot of people understand queer theory or where it comes from. They haven't done the reading. They don't know. And I mean, this friend was kind of antagonistic about, I mean, I didn't say anything about the word bisexual because I'm not trying to really argue with people on my vacation. But she kept just using the word queer, and then we kept talking a little bit about feminism. And I mean, I tried to point out something about Foucault, and she looked at me like I was crazy. Oh, this is what happened. I said, he's really difficult to understand. And she's like, is it difficult for everyone to understand him or just you? And I was like, what? So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm so scatterbrained. This is not the best live stream. But that's why if anyone wants to join, I have this link here. S Valley says, I have problems calling myself bi due to the fact it's been years since I had a relationship with a woman. I actually wonder if flexible is more accurate. Oh, it sounds like someone's here.
Hi, sorry, I forgot to mute the other thing.
It's okay.
Now it should be all right.
Hmm. How are
Hi.
you?
Uh, it could be better, but I'm okay-ish.
Okay-ish.
Yeah, it's just my health problems, and I had to deal with a shitload of bureaucracy, and it was a bit draining.
Oh no.
How about you? Did your move go okay?
Oh, I'm still on the road, sort of. Like, I'm kind of just staying with friends. But yeah, I think it's going all right so far. But I was sort of I was describing this time that I was at my other friend's house before, like about a week ago. And this is a woman who I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm not pretty sure. I am sure she's a heterosexual woman. She hasn't had a relationship with a woman ever. I think she has crushes on women and she never acts on them. But she uses the word queer to describe herself. So
What
that's kind of what
what
I'm
does she base her queerness on? What does she think makes her queer?
I think she's bisexual. That's what she says to me. And um S Valley was using the word heteroflexible or something like that. Het flexible. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've never really seen her be in a relationship with another woman. So I think the word queer is very strange. And then I was trying to talk about Foucault, and I was trying to tell her about like queer theory, and she didn't seem to want to listen or think that I was credible in any way. And I'm like, I don't think you know how much reading I've done in the past year. Like
Um,
it was kind of it was kind of frustrating.
Hi, Cyber.
Yeah,
Hi,
hi.
everybody. Yeah, I couldn't. When I heard what you were going to talk about, I just wanted in.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an
Have you
interesting
all seen
conversation.
this queer theory Jeopardy that Derek Jensen did?
I'm sorry?
There's a video about this guy, Derek Jensen.
Mhm.
It's called
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Queer Theory Jeopardy.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, I think. I
They,
saw him talk about it, talk about Foucault at least at some like speech engagement he was doing, speaking engagement.
yeah.
Um not sure. It was yeah, I don't know. He has a lot to say about it. Most of us know about it. Um it's a lot of sort of the manipulation of language to sort of like gloss over like the reality of a situation, like pedophilia, for example, is like
Yeah.
probably their most egregious sort of, and a lot of those theorists fought for, you know, like the age of consent to be basically obliterated because there was no, there, you know, there are no
Uh,
morals and
it was the suffragettes which introduced age of consent in the first place.
mm,
The very first wave of feminists who
Yeah.
made it illegal for men to rape little girls. And then they try and bring it back because they think trespassing boundaries is the best thing ever, no matter
yeah,
which boundary it is.
transgression.
Yeah, but what's also comes to mind and what's really interesting regarding children and their protections in society is the point that in United States children were not protected. Animals were protected before the children. If you know the history of the laws in United States, you will see that protections for young children were like put in place only after some societies for protection of animals really reacted to some cases and where the children were sold and given no, to other people as a means to pay the debts and sold like slaves. So that's quite recent. I can't
Mm.
remember now the details, but I know that when I read it, I was pretty shocked. It kind of I didn't know so much about American history, but I knew about European history. But
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was
it's only until fairly recently that children were treated as human beings
yeah, exactly.
in like the course of the of world history. Yeah,
Mm.
um, a lot of and still, I mean, in lots of other places, children are exploited um, for their labor and things like that. So, um, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but let's get back to the word. Let's get back to the word queer.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's
Sorry.
get back to it's okay. Let's go back to how I see it in the United States, the way that I see it represented so far. And this is just I've only been here 4 weeks, okay, guys? So I'm a
Mm.
little I'm a little new. So I haven't been here 5 years. And all of this stuff I feel like has sort of taken it's become more we've become more entrenched into this sort of philosophy and belief system, especially in the sort of artist kind of scene.
Mm.
um, and I mean, I've known these friends for many years, and the woman who I'm staying with now and the woman who I was staying with before would never have called themselves queer,
Before,
yeah, like 8 years ago.
yeah,
you know like
totally.
it's become and these are straight women, they are mostly straight, maybe a little bit bisexual,
Mm.
but they are not, they don't have relationships with other women. And I mean, I don't think the word queer describes lesbians at all, of course. But it just seems like a really interesting way, or not interesting, but um shitty way for straight heterosexual people to like integrate themselves into the LGBTQ soup,
Yeah,
alphabet soup.
yeah, I think it's probably worldwide reaction to like a kind of a backlash to LGBT rights and LGBT
Mm.
visibility, like all the talk about it, like it lasts like, for example, in these parts of the world, it lasts like only 20 years or so. Before that, you didn't have this large like amount of organizations dealing with this stuff, and that's like why I think it's a kind of a backlash, and I think a lot of heterosexuals also wants to be hip, and young people want to like be special,
Yeah,
especially
the funny thing
especially
is that these women aren't young. Like the one is
yeah,
45,
but
the other one's like 30
yeah,
something.
true, but they are also on the internet, and the
Hmm.
millennial crew also is quite different because they are internet native, and these people came in their adolescence online, so they
Maybe it's
also,
a part of like also
you
if
know,
it's with like these older women, like not to become irrelevant, or
oh,
like not
totally.
to be like
Or to be seen as an ally. So that's like one reason why they call themselves queer. And when I'm speaking about it, I really have a friend that I have like here in Serbia that used to be my friend, but we like ended up our relationships 3 years ago. And one of the points was like what was getting on my nerve really intensely was this calling herself queer. Although she was like fucking guys all the time and bringing guys to our parties and like,
mhm.
pushing this narrative. Yeah, I'm so queer, I can fuck guys. So that's like, it's like really funny, and it's really kind of insulting. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah,
lesbian. I'm a bisexual, but I'm like
excuse
really.
me.
I find it really insulting because we had this like community where there were a lot of lesbians, and they should like put up with your boyfriend or whatever. Like you bring him every time you like go to our parties and go to our spaces. So why the fuck do you do that? Like, and then you were like claiming the queer badge of honor or whatever, and also supporting that by being a friend of gay guys. That's also one thing I see with women who are heterosexual and call themselves queer. They do it because they have a lot of gay friends. So that's like a way of integrating,
Yeah.
whatever, in the culture, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's right. Leah,
Yeah.
do you have any experience with people who call themselves queer?
Well, I have a lesbian friend which I have lost contact with, and she used to participate on demonstrations on something called the Pink Bloc, which had people also calling themselves queer, but that was some time ago. And at the time, I didn't think it was fishy because it was before all the trans craze started to get so weird.
Yeah.
So we
And I
have a
mean,
question.
when it has come into the language here also that instead of lesbians and gays, it was better to call that whole thing queer.
Right.
We have a question like from Gregory in the top chat. He is asking, "Are you against queer women?"
Gregory, are you a queer woman?
I find it really.
I'm laughing, but
yeah, what?
No, I don't have anything against it necessarily, but I do think it is appropriation when I hear people who these fucking people are married. Okay, like they're in a totally heterosexual relationship. It's even weirdly enough, it's like an erasure of all sexualities, right? Like, it's, like, okay, like you're in a heterosexual relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's a thing. It exists. Stop calling yourself queer.
So what did queer actually means? Like what when you say queer, you mean gay people? So what are gay women actually? What are you saying, Gregory?
Right. Me?
They're lesbians. No, I'm asking Gregory.
Oh,
so
Gregory.
Gregory like has a definition for queer women. So I want to hear it because I don't understand.
What is the definition of queer? For fucking real. I really want to know what the definition is because I know it via queer theory. And what I know of queer theory is that it is a sort of an offshoot of postmodernism. And as we know, like postmodernism sort of destroys language in this attempt to combat structures of power. It's totally ineffective as far as I'm concerned. Okay, queerness incorporates men. So it includes bi women? What the fuck does that mean? I don't.
Bisexual women are not queer women. Like
I'm a bisexual. Wait, I'm a bisexual, okay? And I'm more like, and I'm actually more like celibate, like a celibate, separatist sort of.
Yeah, so here it is. Queer has been used as an adjective to refer to any people who transgress distinctions of gender. Get the fuck out, man! This transgress distinctions of gender since I was born. Like I used to have short hair all my life. What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make me sexually bisexual or lesbian.
I don't understand why everyone is suffering through fucking collective amnesia when the word queer was a slur that was yelled at me when I was in fucking high school. And
Yeah.
that happened to a lot of Americans, and it happened to the people who are now telling me that they're queer because they're like, "Oh, we've taken it back." It's just like the word slut. You cannot do it, okay? You cannot do it. You just can't. And there are other words too that I refuse to say, obviously, but you cannot take them back. That is not, I don't believe how language actually, it is a slow evolution. Language is very slow to sort of evolve. Queer theory has really blurred the distinctions of orientation. I think it's erased distinctions of sexuality, to be honest.
Now, if you're a lesbian, you are a part of a lesbian community.
Queer community. See, that's the thing with this queer community stuff. Like,
it's like the word transgender. Like anybody can be transgender, so everybody transgresses gender. So everybody's transgender. I mean, we had that, Gregory, in like 1 month before. I was at a panel where the woman who is a lesbian and a known lesbian activist was speaking about how she is perceived to be trans, actually, because she doesn't see herself as cis, and people don't see her as cis, so she's probably trans. So she's probably also transgender and queer at the same time. So it's an umbrella term. And when you're speaking like that, you're like just obliterating, like as Wally say, like whatever makes us different, like sexually, like in the kind of sexual orientation we have.
I don't want to be in your goddamn umbrella. All right. So let me tell you something about community. Okay. I was just a funny story. It's not really anything, but I'm standing in line to go to a movie, and the guy turns around because people are really friendly in Santa Fe. And he's like, "What are you here to see?" And we're like, "Oh, we're here to see." And I don't even want to say what I saw because it was shit, but it was fun. Whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I'm here to see A Star Is Born." I'm like, "What's that?" It's the Lady Gaga movie. And he's like, "I just love Lady Gaga." Da, 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 da. You know, it's going off. He's like, "She's just been such a great representative of my community." And he's talking about gay men because this dude is obviously a homosexual male. And my friend, who's queer, and I'm using scare quotes here, says, "Oh, our community." And I'm standing there like, I'm not part of any of this fucking community. Like, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not included in the Lady Gaga fan club here. Like, but so I mean, I don't think it's like, there are lots of people like me who are bisexual who really don't appreciate the word queer to be, and I don't really feel like I'm part of a larger community at all, especially as kind of a radical feminist. Is, you know, it's not. Someone says it may be now, but it hasn't always been, and that context matters. Oh, right. It may be an umbrella term now. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to tell you guys that story because I thought it was. I'm like,
yeah, I have another story. There was once there was a party, and it was a lesbian party. It was organized by lesbians to gather money to do some project, whatever, you know. So everybody came there, and in the middle of the evening, like some heterosexual couples come in, and they're like, I don't know, maybe 100 people in there. So they are coming and they see the party going on, like, and they're dancing and everything. And this guy came with two girls, and he was dancing for a while with them, like, and then he stood beside me at the bar, and at one point, like, he turns to me and says, like, and what are you, like, are you some kind of a Judith Butler character?
What?
Which was like really funny because I was wearing a suit, like, and it was like really funny. It was like, and I'm like, what? You know, I was really amused by that because I don't look like Judith Butler at all, but he kind of projected something. So he wanted to say, like, are you some kind of queer or whatever? He didn't even notice he was at the lesbian party. So it was so funny, you know. So they don't call us queer here. They're calling us like whatever. Like, are you some kind of a butlerite or whatever? You know, if he perceives that is
Yeah,
about
because we're all performing. We're all performing.
yeah
Mhm.
something like that.
The
That was so
world is a show, and if I perform this, I am transgressing power structures.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. I'm just like, this shit's ridiculous to me. I just can't deal with it. But and then I had another conversation with my friend who I'm with now
Oh,
about they them character. And
oh,
now I'm calling non-binary people non-bis. That's like my new term for them, the non-bis.
non-binary.
And she's talking about her friend, and her friend refers to herself. This is a female friend who I've met as a they them, and I was like, I was kind of playing along, and I just laughed, because we're just making dinner together. This is a private conversation. I was like, I just can't do it. That's what I said.
Mm.
And she's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, it is really weird, huh? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And it's like people just aren't even thinking about this shit. They're like, not really. If someone asks them to call themselves they, them, then.
So if it's about transgression, why is it always the transgression goes only one way? You know, like the transgression goes only one way, where you like are trying to change my perspective on you, but you don't see it like when with this misgendering and this like correct labels and everything. That's like too funny to me. So the transgressors who are like trying to transgress gender or do anything like that are so unrelaxed with anybody else transgressing their boundaries, like
Right.
that's like really funny how it works. But it because I don't get it like that. In the culture of transgression, I don't think that works. Like it should be working both ways, but it doesn't, like with people. So
Well, that's what she was saying about her friend, too. She was like, and they're just really selfish, and I don't really hang out with them that much anymore. Because I had met this person like a couple years ago. I was like, oh, are you still hanging out with this person? And she's like, yeah, this person's super selfish, like not very self-aware. And this is a younger person. This is a woman in her, I'd say like early to mid 20s.
mm.
Who the friend you were talking to, or the they them person?
The they them person.
Okay.
The they them person. And my friend is saying how selfish the they them person is and how they don't really hang out that much anymore. And what I said was, I was like, I think those kinds of people are what the kids call extra. She was like, yeah, I guess you're right. It's kind of extra. And so that's just, I mean, I'm not really trying to like have a serious political discussion with my old friend until it actually comes up. I did have a long conversation with her husband, weirdly enough. And he's got all the language, going on. He's like, oh, and I'm a cis het male, and da 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 da. I'm like, oh, Jesus. You're a guy. You're just a man.
I'm beginning to be really glad that in the last couple of years I have not been hanging out in the lefty scene. Because right now I have only ordinary people as friends, and they are not even the greatest bullshit.
Just regular
people, yeah. And it's also, I don't know, for your situations, probably in the United States is different because the culture is different. But I don't know for you, Leah, in Germany, but people I work with, they don't fucking know even one gay guy or a lesbian working with us, and we are like watching this culture that is like talking about non-binary people, like, and stuff like that. We are not so advanced, futures maybe somewhere came somewhere else, but It's not in Serbia, so it's not in reality. It's not in my company where I work. So it's like when you speak of ordinary people, they don't fucking get it. What the fuck are you talking about? They can hardly grasp like a lesbian couple or whatever, you know. They don't really have gay and lesbian people visible or bisexuals. They don't really see it around themselves. They only see like heterosexuals. So that's not even visible. And how how the hell you should talk about, for example, like non-binary people or even trans people. For a lot of trans people that are living now in Belgrade, even trans women and trans men, most of them are like in a kind of situations where they are working for the same organizations that are promoting gender ideology, and in a way, and a lot of them are like totally not really perceived as being like kind of queer. If they're trans men, they look like men. If they're like trans women, we can see that they're men, and they're usually in professions where they're performers or like NGO workers or whatever. So it's like not really a part of our culture even now. Like even though we have like all the laws and everything, we don't have a gay marriage, but we don't have also like lesbian visibility here or gay visibility.
Mm.
None of my friends are like open with their sexuality on the job, even though I know who are the gay and lesbian people I work with, but they're not out with it. No, so how the hell should I like explain to them what is a non-binary person?
I have no idea.
Yeah, everything is like so centric to the like uh, uh, the places where the culture is actually being produced and exported. So it doesn't really fall so well here at this point, even though it's happening in activist circles. That's like such a trendy stuff now. Trans
Hmm.
women is already here. They are like yelling as fuck, like when you are like even asking questions. I'm reminding you, I was at this debate during the Pride Week here in Belgrade, and I was really amazed how they mimic the same behavior you see online, and how they actually, and especially the millennials, the young ones, they're forgetting the kind of culture we used to promote here, and this is the culture of dialogue and discussion, and kind of being aware that you are like in a really small community, so you don't make such big fights in that small community. You have to kind of work with everybody in a way, and you don't hurt people in your own community. But that is kind of lost in this dialogue with trans politics now, and it's quite visible. For example, when I was asking questions on this debate, and I was recording the whole debate, at the same time, immediately when I posed the question, like, what is a cis person? What the fuck cis means? Can you explain it to the people? Because a lot of the people that were sitting there, they're not so well read in trans ideology and in queer studies, so they don't know what the fuck is cis. And I really genuinely wanted them to explain this. And immediately I was shut down. Like he was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, why are you posing this question? You're not on the internet, like that kind of shut down, And I was like, "That's a good question. Come on, settle down. Like, don't be so aggressive." I was quite surprised with that type of where do they get to be so self-assured that this is the thing that they can do. I can understand why in the UK, for example, and the USA, they can do stuff like that, like the activists, but I don't get it really. I don't get it in Serbia because we don't have the basic visibility of lesbians and gay men. I don't get how they are like now like so self-assured that this is the thing that they are going to like shut everybody up, you know.
Yeah, I just decided that I didn't want to listen to Gregory Lloyd anymore, so
No,
I
yeah.
hid him, whatever that means. But he
Mm,
was saying, he says, this is what he said. I'm assuming he, okay, because Gregory
mm,
is usually a male's name. Anyway, you didn't answer my question either, Gregory. You never answered if you're a queer woman.
mm.
Anyway, what did he say? Where did it was it like got too far? Oh, I think it just removed all of the shit. All right, never mind. I can't even read it. It's gone.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a big loss.
Yeah, me neither. But
Because just because you don't identify as queer, it doesn't mean you aren't.
right, right.
Queer is not an identity, for fuck's sakes. You know, it's not an identity. You know, it's not something like not everything is an identity.
Well, what is it? What do we want to say that it is? Um
We kind of identify as male or female in society because we have to have this castes, you know, recognized, because that means something that is based in reality, and
mhm.
all the other things like are also like, you know, all made up, like, you know,
They're constructions, yes.
instructions, like
I
gender is
think
construction. So why the fuck I would like be like applying a social construction to myself?
Mhm.
How is that? How is my individuality turned off? I mean, that's a
Right.
good question in this time of an age. Like you're so fucking, everybody's so fucking individual, but they are all subscribing to some umbrella terms and everything.
Right. It's
I
very
think
ironic, isn't it?
Mm,
I think whole I identify as needs to go away.
mm,
Are something or you're not, and the most you can do is say, I consider myself to be, for example, I consider myself to be a feminist. You can't identify into something. This whole
mm.
concept is so bullshit
Yeah, and you can say I am a man, I am a woman,
because it's fact, yes.
I am 35 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for facts. Yeah, I don't identify as anything, you know?
Yeah.
That's really a strange concept to me.
Yeah, and you can't identify as anything, and that makes it so. That this whole
Mhm.
concept is totally weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can identify as a metalhead, for example. That that's okay with me, or as a punk, you
Yes,
know.
but I am a metalhead,
Or,
and I have never in my life said or heard another metalhead say, I identify as a
I
metalhead.
identify it as a metalhead. Yeah, you can just say
Yeah,
you are, right? Again.
you are because you listen to the music and you like listening to it.
Yeah.
mm,
Oh my god.
Yeah, it all becomes this really weird game
Magical thinking,
of
like
like
you can
yeah.
cast this like a spell. I identify as, therefore I am.
Mhm.
Like a spell,
mm.
magical thinking.
Yeah, that's the type of thinking, and I don't know how it what it comes from, but I think in a larger part it comes from entitlement.
Mhm.
And and if in terms of radical feminist analysis, it's male entitlement. So
Mhm.
you can identify as much as you want to be a trans man, but what you share with all the other females, you are born like like a female. If you're born like a female, you share a lot of common things with all the other women that are not identifying as trans men, for example. And I don't get how it ends, like with altering your body or whatever, you know, because that doesn't erase the biological reality, and material reality. So
Yeah. It West Valley says identity is deeply personal and under constant change through life, in my opinion. It isn't about reality, it's about understanding oneself in relationship to the environment one is in.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think going back to this word queer, though, it is definitely a way for people who are heterosexual, I'm talking about heterosexual people, to enmesh themselves into the LGBTQ sort of like alphabet soup. And
It's
I
kind
think
of
a part
like
of it
when
is
rich
because there's
people
money. What?
move into working class areas which are considered hip.
Mm-hmm.
And then they consider themselves to be a genuine part of that community, like underdogs and something. And this is the same kind of colonization which entitles straight people who want to be cool to get into lesbian and gay spaces.
Mm. Yeah.
They don't want to be considered tourists. They want to be considered a part of it.
Yeah, part of the community, the umbrella. Well, they can.
We actually had a argument a couple of years ago that I only heard about today from a friend who was like organizing a Dyke March here in Belgrade, which happened, I think, only 2 or 3 times here, like in the last couple of years, like last 5 years. So they had an issue with a queer community who had their representation in heterosexual women talking to lesbian women here, like why the hell are you not allowing gay men to march with you on the Dyke March? So that was like a couple of years ago, and today I think the issue would be like, why don't you allow like trans women to march with you on the Dyke March, because they are also lesbians. And I think that this kind of transgression in gay circles, for example, when they're calling themselves like hello sister, 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 that's like quite common now. I've actually heard it in reality, like they're emulating this culture that they sucked on YouTube or wherever, like from this, I would call it like radical gay scenes from United States. That's not even happening here, like that kind of culture. But they are like sucking it up, and then they are like behaving like that, for example, in reality, calling themselves sisters, and they don't realize how it's like really appropriation, because that comes from a second wave and radical feminism also, like women liberation movement and everything, like that doesn't
Well,
sound like
a lot of the things that they do are appropriation. They don't have an original thought, it seems.
It's not only, so it's not only the trans women are like transgressing something, like the gay guys are also transgressing this, like, and they're doing like for 30 years. So now our eyes are kind of open now, because this is a big backlash against women's rights. They don't give a fuck. I was reading this Mumsnet talk. I don't know if you've seen it. Like,
I think I sent it to you.
yeah. You probably did, but I don't know if Julia saw it. Did they post it on Gender Hammer today?
I've been lurking on Mumsnet a lot the last days because of the consultation. I really wanted to know what's going on.
Yeah,
because
so
they have a consultation into self-ID, which was supposed to end half an hour ago, but they had to extend it till Monday because so many wanted to fill it out. The website crashed.
This is a link to what we're referring to here.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Here you go.
Yeah.
It's on the top chat.
Can I ask you something, Julia? Do you think that they did a good job with the server? Because I'm quite amused by the fact that people can like crash the server. Like, what did they expect? That people are not going to fill up?
You're the admin. It's not my specialty, but even since it's not my specialty, I think it's pathetic that the government of a country can't make a server stable enough to handle a couple of thousand requests.
That was happening when we were like changing all of our healthcare over too. Like
Yeah.
all of the servers always crash when it has anything to do with the government.
That's kind of funny because the government is sponsoring like development of IT structure, and that's also funny in a way how they expect that these tools that they put up on the internet are not going to be used or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
maybe it's not only incompetence in IT stuff. Maybe it's also because they wanted to sneak it in quietly.
yeah,
They didn't really want anyone to fill that out except Trump.
in UK, I also had another thought, like, so probably Amy Challoner and the guys are having their fun also, like, because you can attack them, you know, you can prevent people from filling in the consultation by like attacking that fucking form that they put there. I don't know how, because I didn't really explore, but you know that's also possible. Like they have a sit down on the server, so that would be
with the Fair Play for Women website. The last days of the consultation, it was very often out of order, and we don't really know why.
That's because probably is the DDoS attacks. That's probably why, and that could be organized quite easily now. And I do think that these guys, like boys from the internet, like Amy Chalner and his crew, and a lot of the other ones, we are not like even talking public about, which are like on Twitter and everywhere. Like there is a big crew of these guys, like the trans women guys, you know. I think that they are doing that also.
Yeah, but I don't think it helped them all that much because it's finally getting covered in mainstream old school media.
Yeah, they made such a big fuss that it's not even contained on Twitter, on Facebook. It's all over the media, so it's out there. But this Mumsnet, it's like really. Why I commented on it, because they there the woman that was there, like she describes what happened there and what they were speaking about, and it's quite appalling and maddening in a way, like when you read the whole thing, like how they don't fucking care about women and children, and they don't give a fuck about the age of consent and everything like that, you know. They're just like validating their own identity. And
quick question: are you talking about the one Mumsnet woman who snuck undercover into a trans activist conference?
Yeah,
it was really chilling. Yeah.
Yeah, I put the link in the top chat in case anyone wants to look at what we're talking about. So I guess there were different panels. It happened on the 8th of September of this year in London, at a church, ironically enough. And and it was called We're Still Here. And
as if anybody could miss that.
Right. About 80 to 100 people in attendance, overwhelmingly white, mainly older trans women, a group of trans men, some mermaids delegates, some fellow travelers and allies. There's a health panel, which was talking about a lot of things, but one of the things that they mentioned was like coming after Heather Brunskill Evans, who wrote Born in Your Own Body. And it's quoted here as saying, I will tear it a new asshole. So someone's gonna try to tear apart that. And then someone's working on a book supposedly called Turf Wars. Which will be, in quotes, a rigorous takedown of turf arguments. She's getting serialized as an article in some peer-reviewed journal. So that was the first panel. The second was the education panel. Did you have anything specific you wanted to say about it?
Yeah, this keynote speech by Dawn Butler, MP, Shadow Women, Women and Equalities from Labour, probably. Quote, Labour will champion the unheard. Really funny, because Labour has so many activists now, like working for them, like online and everywhere, like in the media, and you can see it by the comments, for example, from Lisa Motherich and everything, and it's like really funny. Labour will champion the unheard. Come on, we all know they're not talking for the unheard, like they're not the representation of people, which you think they are. So this woman is thinking they are. That was really funny for me, like politically watching them, everybody like getting so hit up, because the Labour actually supported the GRA.
She also said that I'm just reading this directly here, the LGBT community needs to mobilize, they need to contribute to the consultation, they need to change the tone of the debate. She also went on to say that a phobia is an irrational fear, and there are 3 treatments: hypnosis, talking therapy, and immersion therapy. Apparently, the only way forward to deal with transphobia is talking therapy.
So that's how
we look forward.
Otherwise known as like gaslighting.
But that's actually the classes they're going to put up, and the next thing they're going to do, like after they take schools, they are going to take corporations. I think like the biggest brainwashing is now happening in corporations.
Yeah, there's a huge agenda here. It's every time we talk about this, it becomes clear that there's a lot of money and power involved in this movement, in scare quotes.
Yeah, I also found it really chilling that they were talking about how they want to insert themselves into a feminist organizing and address stuff like period poverty to gain sympathy or to appear like they care for biological women's needs. That's why they want to do it, and also they will do it only under conditions like having their weird language inserted.
Yeah, but the most disturbing thing, for example, on this Mumsnet talk was the mermaids. For me, it was like the most disturbing, because she actually wrote here that there were a couple of trans kids there, and they were very intelligent and articulate, and they felt that the current law around under 18s are not being able to get the GRC or change their birth certificate were discriminatory. And so and then she continues, like, Christine Burns said that children have gender awareness from around the age of 2. That's fucking insane.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And the general consensus was that a child who articulates that they want to change their gender should be able to, and no matter how young they are. That's like totally evil, if you ask me. Like, also, Christine Burns says that we baby children in our culture, and that's why I was referring to this, because I started with this thing that only 100 years ago children could be sold, you know. So only 100 years ago you could sell your child if you were owning the money to somebody, you know.
And you still can in certain parts of the world.
In certain parts of it. But when we're speaking about this, let's speak about the United States. If somebody does that, even if I can also speak about Serbia, for example. Here, child marriage is considered to be normal and not transgressive. We had a case a couple of years ago where a young girl was like married to a guy at the age of 14 or something like that, and she had a child, and she was also not mentally well, and the child had issues, and the whole thing got into the public eye because the social services had to mingle in it, like to get involved. And then when we read it, like it was like unbelievable that she was married. She was actually not even married. She was living with the guy. So that constitutes a rape, and that happens all the time, you know. And she's a child. Like by our law, it should be prosecuted. So the law doesn't apply to her, for example. And I don't really know what happened to that girl, but that was like a pretty, like the story blew my mind. Like that was happening like just like near where I live. So when they say like we baby children in our culture, whereas in other countries, 12-year-olds are considered old enough to fight in wars. And then she says, I don't know why she thought this was a good comparison. And that really
Right.
blows my mind. How can they say that? Like, that's like, I mean,
Because
they
they
are like,
literally just, I guess they're just like vampire people. I don't know. It's insane.
yeah.
They just have no ethical or moral compass anymore.
Just reappeared to me like how they are trying really to take everything back that women have fought for, even the very first
Mhm.
wave.
Yeah, yeah.
Even bring age consent, bring it down, and bring child marriage back. It's really appalling.
Yeah, totally. Like 100 years ago. Like, let's get back to the 19th century. That's actually what they're saying, and I think that a lot of people are not realizing, not seeing it as it is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then they are going to call us like, well, you're the radical, you're seeing it radically. It doesn't mean that, but it's really funny. It means that, literally means that. They think that with all the technology we have, like, and all the democracy we have, like, in the world now, like, that's not going to happen. But it's happening all the time.
Hi, Esvali.
Oh,
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, great. Great.
pretty good.
Yeah, I actually emailed Saber the other day and asked, what's happened to Witchy? Where's she gone? Because I'd known in this gap for a few weeks.
Yeah, I just am on the road and like catching up with some old friends. And that's why I wanted to sort of talk about this word queer too, because the United States, in left-ish circles, I suppose, it's the thing to call yourself, I guess. Unless you're a guy who's sort of groveling, and then you're a het cis male.
Yeah.
That seems to be what's
I
going
believe
on.
you said that wrong. You're supposed to say cishet, I think.
I don't understand. I don't care either. I'm like, it doesn't matter whatever category you want to like give yourself. You're still a dude, and I'm still not one. So I don't know. It just seems to be redundant.
Well, a lot of the newspeak stuff, it's all based on people's feelings rather than any solid definition. That's what I have. If there was solid definition that made sense, then it's like, yeah, introduce a bit of language to the world, great. But it doesn't.
No. It's literally anyone who's in the umbrella, and you might not even know you are, but that doesn't mean that you're not.
Because we had Gregory to tell us that.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we are all queer. We don't get it. Just don't get it. Like we're so
Don't
stupid.
understand. Yeah. Anyway, S Valley, it's great to hear from you. You've also been on the road recently, right? little.
Yeah, I went over to Portugal, to Lisbon specifically, and while I was there, I had like media interviews, a conference, and speaking in Parliament. And so that was all done in the space of 6 days. And it was really, really full on. Like I got to the, airport at Lisbon after 2 days of flying. I then got picked up, taken to the hotel. I had 50 minutes to open up my suitcases, shower, put on makeup, and I really needed it because, 2 days of not sleeping. And had cameras in my face and an interview straight away.
Wow.
And I was shocked by that because I didn't know it was going to happen,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they
If I'd been
actually.
asked, I would have said no, wait, 2 days before all of that.
How did it go?
It went really well because Portugal has not only signed but ratified what we call CEDAW, the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, that through the UN. So they've got a lot of protocols that they have to observe. And when you point out anything that isn't aligned with CEDAW, then, they have to take note of it. And that's very different to us because, we have signed it, but we haven't ratified.
Which means that it cannot be applied.
Yeah, well, what ratification, like this is my understanding of it. If you sign something, basically your country's saying, yeah, this is an important issue, but we're not in a position to do anything about it, or we don't want to do anything about it. Ratification is, yes, this is an important issue, and we commit to what the document is saying. And that means that they're now legally obligated to, uphold the values of that document.
I'm not familiar with the document. What is it called? One more time?
The Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And it's, quite long and involved, actually. And of course, once you've signed that, then you've also got it interacts with other things that have been signed by the UN, or more to the point, once you've ratified that, I should use the correct language. So if you've ratified the Human Rights Charter, and you've ratified CEDAW, then those two operate together, which make it even stronger.
Is it, Esmali, is it a UN convention?
Is it what, sorry?
UN convention, I think.
UN,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And what was it about in Portugal? They're thinking about the decrim, or they're thinking about the Nordic model, or what was it? I'm afraid I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. A lot of people wouldn't know what's happening over in Portugal. They put forward, a bill was put forward to pass full decriminalisation and follow the New Zealand model of prostitution. So I went over there to tell them what New Zealand actually looks like rather than the myths. Now, obviously, that's going to take a long time to know what they're doing, but they did actually give me some feedback, which it's on YouTube, actually. In Parliament, and it was an open session. It was recorded. The problem is, we're obviously speaking Portuguese, so there's like bits of English in there and there's bits of Portuguese in there. And the feedback that they gave me isn't in English. So anyway, they did say they can't follow a lot of the stuff that New Zealand's done because of having ratified CEDAW. So that is a really good start. The other thing, people were very shocked by what I said. It's funny because I don't find it shocking. I find it normal, because when you've lived in a particular system, to you it's normal, even when you're pointing out the problems. Yeah, so I think we are very likely to have blocked this bill, but it hasn't come to its, final decision yet.
I don't think that we in Serbia also signed the convention. That convention, I think we signed it in 1992 or something like that. But we didn't ratify it. I think maybe I'm wrong. I cannot. I know what you're talking about because I have friends that were working on that here.
Right.
So I don't think
we have a consultation with UN Women coming up in about, I think it might be 3 weeks away. Something like that anyway. And one of the things that I'm going to be pushing at that, because I'm one of the speakers, is that we need to ratify, the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, because there's very little we can do while it's just an idea that women have rights rather than a commitment to those rights.
But is it as well? Is this convention being renewed all the time? Because I see that it goes back to 1979.
They will have had amendments since then, but an amendment still has to go through a huge process. So it can take up to 2 years to amend a UN document.
Yeah, because I now read that.
And what's one more time, just so I can put the acronym in the top chat?
Yeah, I will.
Oh, okay. So CEDAW.
Yeah.
CEDAW.
Yeah.
So Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women.
Yeah, but we actually did ratify it in 1981. So it's like it was ratified, as far as I can read here, like in 1981 in Yugoslavia, probably. I don't think that it was like Serbia because it was the ex-Yugoslavia. So I think that we all that signed are like actually now are like 6 countries here. So it's ratified. So we have this gender equality laws coming from it also, But it's kind of murky.
Yeah.
For me, it's not really.
We haven't ratified it in the United States.
No,
really quickly. Sorry, go ahead.
The United States, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, I don't think any of us have ratified. I know definitely not the United States, Australia and New Zealand, but I'm not 100% sure on the UK and Canada, but I don't believe they have.
The other 5, I looked it up really quickly here. It says other members that haven't ratified this are Iran, Somalia, Sudan, and Tonga. United. Anyway, that's an interesting thing to look into. I don't know a lot about this kind of thing, so thank you for sort of shedding a light on it.
So I just
that's all right. I've had to learn about it. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I just looked it up. I googled it, and I saw that Germany has ratified this. So why are we the Brussels of Europe? Do you know something about this?
I'm kind of shocked that Germany's ratified it and has legalization of prostitution, to be honest, because it's indirect violation.
Yeah, but what it says here, like in the document I'm reading, like the local document in Serbian, it says like the states that ratify the convention are obliged to change the customs, prejudices, and practices that are based on our understanding of on the inferiority or superiority of women or men, as well as removing them by all degrees and forms of education, traditional understanding of the roles of women and men, So it's kind of speaking, not speaking about women only. It's speaking about men and women and men.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of shocks me that Germany can have legalization under that because given the fact that there's contracts in Germany, that means that if a woman wants to say no to sex, she can't, which is rape. Now, that is definitely a discrimination. It's definitely something that mostly is happening to women, not to men. So it's a sex-based, gender-based issue. It doesn't make sense. The only way that it could make sense is if it was signed after legalization had been implemented, in which case they would have to make a commitment over a period of time to rectify that.
Virtual Insanity asks, what do people consider discrimination?
It's a bloody good question, isn't it? I guess I would say any form of harm to a specific group of people that is an immutable part of who they are. Like what race you are, what sex you are. Even if it was like only happening to people who were with blue eyes, it's something you can't change.
Right. So it's the mistreatment of a person who has an immutable trait, and it's the mistreatment of this person's immutable trait, like based on like them having, for example, blue eyes. Someone calls them a name or beats them up because they have blue eyes and they're discriminated against. They can't get a job, things like that. So it's as a direct result of said immutable trait. That people are discriminated against.
Yeah, and I'd include motherhood in that because, having a female biology and getting pregnant and giving birth is an immutable fact of life for many women. We can try not to get pregnant, but we can't assure that we won't.
Yeah, and women are still getting sacked from their jobs in Serbia when they get pregnant. So there is a good question by Mr. T. Ray. He's talking to Virtual Insanity, and he asks, isn't discrimination, isn't it also crime though? So that's exactly it. Some forms of discriminations are crimes now. So that's why you need this type of laws to protect people from discrimination.
Right, and that's why when we mention the access to bathrooms, for example, this sort of bathroom conversation. Firstly, I honestly don't believe that being transgender is immutable. And, once you get someone infringing on the rights of another group, like who's being discriminated against? I mean, it gets people get confused. Like it's actually women here who are at risk.
Absolutely.
So I thought Mr. Tira was saying, isn't it also a crime though if it's illegal, meaning prostitution?
Right. Well, there are 4 models of prostitution, Mr. T, not 2. So, when we talk
just
about
for our audience, why don't you tell us with the?
Yeah, I'll be really quick about it, but there's legalization and illegalization, which is what most people think are the only models available. But if something's illegal, it's illegal across the board. If it's legal, it's across the board, usually. Sometimes there can be variations, they'll have exceptions, and that'll be, to specific countries' legislation. Then you've got decriminalization, which is falling between the cracks of legal and illegal. And again, there's full and partial rather than across the board with everything. Though full decriminalization only exists in New Zealand, and that is across the board. So that's, pimping, selling and buying. Then you've got the Nordic model, which decriminalizes the person who is being prostituted. It makes it illegal to pimp people or third-party profiteers of all descriptions. So that's your, brothels and escort agencies. They've all got to shut down. And it also makes it illegal to buy. But the Nordic model has a third tier to it, and that is that it must implement services for anybody who is in prostitution, who is being prostituted. So if they want help with drugs, with parenting, with getting a mainstream job, those services must be available. And that's the only model that does have help for people who are in it.
There we go. I think that was really comprehensive. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's all right. Sorry to derail it, because I know that you wanted to talk about queer and
Yeah,
the
it's okay. I mean, I think I said what I wanted to say about that, to be honest. I think it is appropriation. I think that heterosexual people have no business saying things like that. I think the word itself does not have a definition, so it's just, to me, virtue signaling. If I hear someone saying it in the United States, I'm queer, to me, you're saying you're virtue signaling. It doesn't mean anything. And I guess I would ask, but my friends, I guess they would have said maybe many years ago they were bisexual. So, I've said it. Yeah, I think it erases all queer theory as an encompassing thing, kind of erases all sexualities. There aren't any, right? We're all fluid. So and I think it's bullshit. So
yeah, there is only male sexuality and female sexuality as far as they're concerned. That's what they are actually telling us.
Or masculine sexuality and feminine sexuality, because these people are like, they're like, oh, and femme people and all of this stuff. And I'm like, you mean someone who likes to wear mascara? Like, I don't. Ugh.
Yeah. Virtual insanity says, I'm in the US and it seems like everyone is queer.
Right. That's what I mean. It means nothing. It's completely meaningless.
Especially our president. He's a fucking queer.
Trump.
Is the ultimate queer person.
Ultimate troll.
Yeah. Raised female sexuality, but not necessarily male sexuality, because there's still, straight men, gay men.
Right.
It's only women to be.
Totally.
That's true. That's true. It does aid in the erasure of lesbianism too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was aiming for, Svali, to hear that, like, because they also, like, they claim that they're like straight guys and there is that sexuality that exists, still exists. The queer theory doesn't like deny that. Like, there is male heterosexuality, but then there is also gay sexuality now, and it's quite prominent, but no other thing is like even mentioned. Like, women are not like visible in at all.
So it doesn't have anything to do with male sexuality. Oh man.
I mean, I see it in the fact that they are not ever like attacking heterosexual men, for example, to change their sexuality.
Right. No one's ever. Well, they're only doing that to gay men, sort of, a little bit. I've heard of like trans men who try to like go after gay men. I've heard of that. But straight guys. I mean,
and also let's get back to the Mumsnet talk. There is this thing about the boundaries. So I will read it. Then they started talking about something very disturbing, the gray area around consent laws with regards to trans people who don't tell sexual partners that they are trans, whether that that deception should be counted as the person not actually having consented to the sex. I believe a trans man recently went to prison for this. From the sounds of things, the group is in the room didn't seem to like the idea of sexual partners being able to use the law if their sexual consent was received by deception. That's like a big,
cool.
and
So
it's
rape.
that's actually rape, and that's actually falls into this topic we're talking about, like how their gender identity trumps all the laws we have in place and the rule of law. Like that's how is that possible? How are you going to do that actually? Like, because all the cases that we are seeing now in the media, they're all talking about that they are not above the law. They're going to go to jail, like even though they are like trans women.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm bad at carrying on a conversation today. I have no idea. I kind of zoned out, and I am actually getting a little, I don't know, I'm not tired. It's only 5 p.m., but um yeah, we've been going for about 85 minutes. So I think I might wrap it up a little bit soon here. Um but does anyone have anything to add to just sort of this, what I see as a destruction of language, and sort of like these words that just, they don't have any meaning other than to signal to other people that you're, I guess, an ally or something like that.
I wonder how much it's got to do with, everybody has to get a medal at school. And so, they get into the real world. The real world doesn't, clap because you managed to get from point A to point B, slower than everybody else. And so then there's this need for some kind of specialness to be recognized. And so, you've got this queer theory where you can then claim to be more discriminated against and, enter the oppression Olympics and have everybody go, oh, poor you've had to deal with so much, and so they get this attention that they have been missing since leaving school.
I think some of it, but like I'm saying, like it's in the United States and from what I've experienced, and again, it's not been a long time that I've been back, but it's also a generation of people my age who are doing this. And I wouldn't have ever called myself that. And I still won't. But I like bristle at it, and I'm like, well, what do you mean by that word? I've asked people. They're like, oh, it's, so I can be more inclusive. And I'm like, you know what? Certain groups need to be exclusive so that they can, talk about their specific needs. And I mean, I'm for people working together and all of this sort of thing, but inclusivity is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm eating a pumpkin seed.
We've got a bit of that going on in Australia and New Zealand, where you've got people in their 40s and 50s wanting to be inclusive. But I think there's also this thing of feeling like, capturing the youth culture and not being too old.
Not being an old fuddy-duddy like me. I mean, I've embraced it.
Yeah.
Being out of touch or something. And it's like, you can be absolutely in touch with what's going on and in disagreement with.
And they'll be like, educate yourself, They'll say shit like that. And you're like, why don't you do some of that? If you're like, if I'm confused and I'm asking you, why don't you give me the courtesy of telling me? Because you can't. They can't. They don't know what they're even fucking talking about half the time.
Maybe that's a bit
Judith Butler,
What's that?
Most of them haven't even read Judith Butler.
Yeah, they were immersed in social media, and that's it. That,
Tumblr.
yeah, like, so they should immerse themselves, you know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
we also
wrong
argue
with
about the
the-
immersion therapy, but not on social media.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's something wrong with the sense of self if you are taking your cues from 12-year-olds. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. It's
Mhm.
yeah, it just seems, and I think a lot of the people who I talk to and who I'm friends with like know that there's like a level of charade happening here that they
Mm.
don't want to acknowledge. Like when we're going back to like the they them person that my friend was describing, like they even said like I don't even hang out with them because they're too selfish and self-absorbed and all
Mm.
of all of this. And I'm like, so you do know that this shit is extra and it's not even productive really, and it's not doing sure, okay, we're transgressing things, we're breaking barriers. It's not even doing that. It's just making people sort of be on edge, and like you kind of tiptoeing around and oh my god, I used the wrong label or whatever. It's just a way to, I think, trap people too, sort of, and like the older generation as well. It's like they have a lot of disregard for a lot of people who are older than them.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just a mess, and I hate it.
I think it breeds narcissism because, the person gets online, they start reading about all of this gender diversity, they start questioning their own identity. Then from there, they're questioning the minutiae, and it keeps on going. It's like a self obsession with identity develops, and that can't help but turn into navel gazing narcissism.
Mm.
And that's the culture around it, sort of
Oh,
pushing into that space.
yeah. Oh, I think my friend's getting home now, so I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it was great to catch up with everybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
nice to hear from you
Totally.
again.
yeah, thank you for chatting, and we'll have to all do this again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.